This is a 2018 limited edition Subaru BRZ TS. What does TS stand for? Tuned by STI. So it doesn't have an STI turbo motor, which is unfortunate. In fact, it has the same motor as every other BRZ you can buy. But it's all of the other little pieces that go into this car that make it so special. So the big question is, should you buy a limited edition, there's only 500 being made, BRZ TS? Or should you buy a base trim model, which starts around $26,000, and add $8,000 in parts? We're going to answer that in this video. It's rare that the first thing I'm going to talk about are wheels and tires, but here we are. For the first time, you can get a BRZ with 18-inch wheels, and they are beautiful. These are blacked out STI units, and I can't think of something that would look better on this car. The tires are Michelin Pilot Sport 4s. They're super sticky summer tires. Now, if you were to go buy this wheel tire combo, you're looking at about $2,000, which is not cheap, but it is super high quality. The brakes are Brembos with a 12.8-inch disc. If you were to buy a big brake kit, you're looking at least $1,000. But they're also Brembos in the back here with a 12.4-inch disc. So overall, you're looking at another couple $1,000 just for brakes. Suspension has also been upgraded, and to be honest, I'm sure if you're doing an aftermarket upgrade, you'd probably pick something more aggressive than the Sachs dampers mated to STI springs. However, here it's a good compromise for people who drive on less than perfect roads, such as most of the eastern USA. But if I was to do just the minimum for our price comparison, you can get a set of H&Rs or iBox for a couple $100. The wing is glorious. It's big, beautiful, and carbon fiber. Now, if you were to go to the aftermarket and buy something similar, you're looking at maybe something from Saibon for about $600. But if you look at the quality of this piece and how it's mounted to the deck, yeah, you're not going to get something this good looking in the aftermarket. Inside the trunk is enough space for maybe a small golf bag. Yeah, it's not significant, but for daily use, it's fine. And it's bigger than what you would find in a Miata. Above the engine are a pair of cross members with spherical bearings. They help to sharpen steering response. The engine itself, yeah, it's unchanged. It's basically the same BRZ motor that we've had since 2017. It puts out 205 horsepower from a 2-liter Boxer 4 engine. Peak horsepower does come at 7,000 RPM though, so it's got that going for it. Ooh, aluminum hood, nice and light. The interior is very similar to the limited model. You get nice trim components, you get leather wrapped everything, and you get seats that are trimmed with Ultra Suede, which is basically the Japanese version of Alcantara. Very comfortable seats. These ones also have TS embroidered on them, letting you know this is one of the special edition cars. The gauge cluster says STI. It has a big tack right in the middle, and then it has a multifunction display to the right. Like the limited model, this one comes with a touchscreen navigation unit, and it is actually pretty good by modern standards. It's not the most beautiful thing, but it does get the job done. It has built-in navigation, which, you know, is not too bad. Let's just say I don't want to use their built-in navigation. I just want to click on something on my iPhone. Well, good news. This supports both Android Auto as well as Apple CarPlay. All I have to do is plug in my phone. I get a new icon on my display. Click on that, and now I have full Apple CarPlay functionality. Okay, moving on down, we have dual zone climate control with actual physical buttons, which is great. And then we have this shifter. It's a 6-speed manual unit. It feels amazing, and it has this reddish insert that matches the rest of the colors throughout the car. Yeah, for some reason, STI, maybe they got tired of explaining that pink was actually cherry blossom red, and they've actually made it much more red now. And I think it looks pretty good. I mean, yes, I always explain that. If you ask my kids, they'll be like, no, it's cherry blossom red. It's not pink. So now nobody needs to explain that. It just looks awesome. And they've also carried these pink highlights, not just on the interior, but also to the exterior of the vehicle. The bottom carbon fiber lip, which is also an option that we didn't calculate in. Those are at least $500 if you're gonna get one of those. Side skirts, another $500. We are totally adding up the tally here. You want to get an interior like this? You're not going to get it in the base trim BRZ. You're going to spend at least $500 to $1,000 to get an interior like this added to a base trim car. So we have a tally so far of about $6,000 in upgrades. Add on those side skirts and that front lip, and you're looking at almost $7,000 in upgrades. So the big question that we really want to ask is, if you take a base trim BRZ and add a lot of features, is this TS that is pre-modified from the factory better? And to do that, we need to take it for a drive. You don't buy this car for 0 to 60. You buy it for the handling and the feel and just the raw pleasure of driving, because this has got it. Now, the enhancements with the BRZ are significant, but more important at high speed handling. If I'm going over the crest on turn 1 at Laguna Seca, I'll want that wing. I'll want those ground effects. However, in town, around the city, even on a tollgate road, you're just not going fast enough to really make use of it. Although that wing does look awesome. So let's go back to that initial question. Which is better, the TS, or should you buy a limited or a base trim and modify it? Well, luckily, we've got a friend that's gonna help us find out.
So this is a 2017 Subaru BRZ with the optional performance package. I really like the car as it sits right now. I feel like it's kind of the end of the simple must-have modifications for the BRZ. I'd say anything after this is when you start getting into really kind of changing the dynamics of the car. So I'd say right now is kind of one of the kind of stage 1 or phase 1s of the car. I'm pretty happy with where it sits. For this car, I take it to the track about once a month during the season here in rainy Seattle. And then otherwise, you'll probably find me on back roads on the weekends, going exactly the speed limit. I think my favorite thing about this car is just the driving dynamics, like the handling. It's out of the box, just such a fun car to throw on the twisties, and you don't have to go 100 miles an hour to do it. I did track this car before modifying it. I did have kind of a loose plan of what to do with it. I knew I wanted to start with handling first, so I did coilovers, wheels, and tires to start. I think that kind of made the biggest difference in the car. From there, I knew it was kind of moved to I wanted to move towards some light power mods, headers, tune, catback. I mean, that doesn't really add any power, but it adds fun, so I'll count it. And then from there, to make it reliable for the track, I decided to get an oil cooler, so just to keep things from blowing up. For wheels and tires, Wedsport TC 105Ns, 17x9, and then for tires, they're GT Radial Champiros 245s. Other modifications include some minor springs to the shifter, transmission and differential oil, and some minor bushings for the transmission. I don't think you need to add a turbo to have fun in this car. I think 99% of drivers will not be able to drive this on the limit. And in fact, I see a lot of turbo BRZs getting beaten out by Miatas and NA BRZs every day at the track. Like it's actually amazing. So I think it doesn't need it. It could benefit from a little bit more power, but for the money you're spending to properly cool a turbo kit on this car, you're looking at 10 grand and you won't even be able to drive it on the limit.
David here is so nice to let me drive his car. Now, obviously, I'm not going to try to like slide your car or anything like that because that would be foolish. But I can say the turn-in is really crisp. I really like that transition, the feel of the transition from one side to the other. Obviously, you've done some work to the camber here.
Yep.
What kind of camber are you running?
So I've got -3 in the front, okay, and -2.4 in the back. So
oops, that's a little off, sorry.
It's all good. Yeah, certainly much better suited to the track than grocery getting.
Yeah. So the interesting thing here is you haven't done any actual like serious engine mods outside of the headers and Anything else? Cold air intake? Anything like that?
No intakes. Those are actually generally they don't do anything on this car.
Yeah.
Intake from the factory is quite good. The only other thing of note would be an oil cooler. These cars run really hot. If you're tracking them, you need an oil cooler. It's not an option unless you're putting around at 6th gear or something.
Right.
So that would be the only other thing.
Basically, you can spend $29,000 on a car like this, and this is a fully loaded, already better than the regular BRZ to begin with car, and you're getting a car that'll compete with pretty much anything from a driver's skill level. You know, the only other thing really comparable to this would probably be like a Miata or a secondhand Porsche Boxster, maybe. But especially here in the Pacific Northwest where it rains all the time, having a coupe, like a proper coupe, just seems to make more sense to me.
That's right, yeah.
Miata, I love Miatas, they handle great, but oh man, I cannot live with a convertible that has like very small trunk space.
Yeah, that's the thing is I can actually bring a full set of wheels to the track.
That's insane.
And so if I like dump it or I hit some debris and I blow a wheel, like I'll just swap over. I can carry all my tools, all my food, like this, no problem. Like it's you can do groceries in these cars.
So cool. But basically you've built a car here that pretty much costs the same as if you were to go into a dealer and buy a TS, I think. I mean, because you know you're looking at $29,000 is what most people would pay for this car, and then you've added on probably at least $5,000-6,000 worth of extras.
Yeah, that's
maybe.
fair.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we've now driven in David's car, which is fantastic. I love what you've done with it. Honestly, I think it has enough power. I'm not concerned with that at all. The handling improvements, I think, are spot on. Now, the question is what do you think of the TS? You have way more experience in this, and so this should be a bigger gap, and you track these. I've driven BRZs on track, but not enough consistent laps to be able to say, oh, you know, the little fine points. So I'm hoping that you can nitpick the TS to the point where people would be like, what is better? Is it to buy just the TS for $34,000, or is it better to buy even a 1-year-old, you know, performance pack and throw some mods on it, or buy a basic edition and throw some mods on it? I mean, because honestly, if you're throwing mods on with the performance pack, you're basically just getting the interior stuff. Because if you're changing everything else out,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go find out. Okay. First impressions.
There's more red. It's nice. It's a nice interior. I like the black accents. I like the red accents. And there's some more Alcantara, which I like. I think they have some above the wheel there. Feels a little bit more expensive. A little bit. I mean, it certainly lives up to the limited edition vibe here. And
right.
They've also upgraded what looks like for the 2018 model year, the head unit here, which I think has
CarPlay and Android Auto.
That's correct. Yeah.
Finally.
And I think it fits better. Like it looks more professional. Looks nicer. Otherwise, it's basically the same.
Red seat belts.
Red seat belts. That means you go faster.
Yep.
Like
5 horsepower. Right
yeah,
here.
Exactly. Yeah, straight away, the clutch feels way different stock. I mean, it feels like you basically have an aftermarket clutch in here. Also, like the gearbox, without some of the modifications that a lot of people do to these, it's harder to find your shift. Like 5 to 4, it takes a little guessing, and I've actually messed it up twice in a row now. It still feels peppy. I mean, I think the throttle response feels great. I mean, I don't think there's ever been problems out of the box there.
No, I think powertrain-wise, this is mostly identical to yours, except for the fact that you've done that flash on yours. But can you really feel the difference?
I can down low. Nothing is happening right here. I mean, I'm in 5th gear.
At 4,000
RPMs. That's remarkably different, even with my heavier tires, heavier wheels. Well, they're lighter wheels, but net heavier with the bigger
without
tires.
those rubber. Yeah.
Also, you're getting that nice. These do come with equal length headers out of the factory, so that's it's actually nice to hear again. It feels a little racy. It's kind of making me think someday I'll go back to that. But yeah, it feels nice. The ride is nice. It's certainly stiffer than even the regular performance package. The turn in here is much more vague. That could be mostly just kind of the what is probably just zeroed out camber. I mean, from the factory, you never know.
Right. They always have to go on the safe side of camber.
It's much different. I mean, I think the tunes on these cars, they changed the throttle mapping too. I'm trying to acclimatize to rev matching this car. It's nice though. It doesn't feel like I'm lacking. It doesn't feel like the car is like cheaper or less fun. It's just it's different.
you?
I mean, I would say, if, regardless if you got the TS, a base model, a performance package, I think there's two like must-have mods for these cars, and I'd say even if you got this, it's important. I mean, tires less so in the TS. The performance package still
Right, because the stock tires are horrible.
Oh, they're garbage. They're fun, but garbage. But
yeah.
I'd also say like getting stiffer shifter springs makes a huge difference. My gearbox feels more expensive than this. This is also not.
And all you've done is put a couple springs in.
Yeah, I mean it's fairly.
Did you do bushings as well on yours?
There's a transmission mount, which means the transmission's moving around less.
Yeah, right.
And that helps too. I'd say that and the transmission oil, like it's such cheap mods, but they do wonders for their car.
Right. So now that we're driving at about 35 miles per hour on this road, are you really feeling the effects of that wing?
No, not at all. I forgot it was there. When I look back, it's there. It doesn't obstruct my view, which is nice. But no, you're not going to feel the effects here.
Yeah. Maybe on the high-speed portion of the ridge, because on the straightaway in an M2, I get up to about 137 on the ridge. What do you get in this car?
In my car, that's probably if I got a very good exit, probably 120.
Okay. So on there, something like that wing, that's going to provide huge downforce at that point.
I think the biggest difference here is the tires. I mean, Pilot 4, I think it's the 4S or something on these.
Yeah, it's a Pilot Sport 4.
Yep, that seems to be the biggest difference. Very stiff sidewall, they're gripping. The car's will still rotate if you throw it around. Like it still feels like a BRZ or 86, where they want to be a little bit tail happy, perhaps less so the BRZ. But I think, I mean that set of tires alone is going to cost you $800-900 probably, and that's actually, like, having that built into the cost of the car is great. It means it's one less thing to change if you buy the car.
You can at least make 1 year of payments before you need to buy new tires.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing about this one is when I do the press launches and the guys get out of the car and they always say the same thing: it needs more power, it needs more power. And it's like, dude, I just saw you lap that car. More power is not going to help you. No. Sorry.
People forget I think we're a little bit...
you get jaded.
You do get jaded, and everyone throws the engine from S2000, F20 as, oh, you had 240 horsepower out of 2 liters. And, I mean, that's a gargantuan... I mean, that's amazing that they did that, but 200, high compression, 2-liter engine is also amazing.
Right. And also with the durability of being a completely stock motor.
That's true.
I mean, this is 205 every day, all day for a decade.
Right. Right. Unfortunately, people don't realize this. I mean, these are engines that shine after a certain RPM, and enthusiasts get that. They're sitting up there. They kind of understand that you've got to rev it to really have fun. One thing I noticed about this car though is, I mean, I think the height they ride at out of the box certainly creates some kind of wallowy feeling in the corners. And they kind of made a point of doing many small things for the 2017 plus model years. They didn't give what people necessarily wanted, but they kind of gave them what they needed. Yeah. Which was a lot of little fixes. There's tons of issues.
It's a tough love fix. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciate letting me drive your car to this car. And honestly, at first I was like, well, you should just get this car. But honestly, your car has such sensible modifications. And they're in a way that I think you approached it very much the same way that the STI engineers approached it, with what incremental changes can I make to the vehicle to really give me that edge. And I got to applaud you for that. That's for sure. When somebody says, I got a buddy who has a car that kind of meets your criteria, it's always like, oh God, what have they done to it? What have they done to it? And I love your car. I love this car. Honestly, if I was to go buy a car simply because I don't have the time to deal with the modifications, I would buy the TS myself. You might feel otherwise. Today, if the TS was available, this is the $10,000 or the $34,000 question. Would you buy the TS or would you buy the performance pack and mod it?
I'd buy the performance pack, and I'll tell you why. I think with the TS, you're paying for quite a lot of very nice interior trim. You're paying for some nice STI kind of options, like you're seeing the lip, you've got the side skirts and the rear spats. Yep. You've clearly got a big old wing for the horsepowers. And I think that's all really nice, but I don't think what they've done to the performance of the car justifies the price. And so I think it comes down to, are you like an enthusiast who's looking to get like the performance out of the car, which I think in that case you are better off even buying like a base model BRZ, because there's better brakes you can buy and you'll save all that money, or get the performance model and do kind of minor things. But if you're just looking to get something out of the box, and you kind of care about the interior, you like the trim, you like what they've done to it out of the factory, I think it's a good choice. But personally, performance driver, I'd save the money.
Now granted, his car is really good. It's very dialed in many of the same ways that this car is dialed in. It's not about power necessarily, it's about responsiveness and handling and control. And his car is just a little bit better than this car. So let's do the maths. This car is $34,000 roughly. His car was probably about $29,000. He's thrown at least $5,000 into that car, maybe a little bit more. So on paper at least, the cars are very evenly matched. However, in terms of performance, his car is better. But I have to say, I like the way this car looks compared to his. Even though he's now gotten them equal on paper, his car still isn't where my choices would be. I would still go with a bigger wheel. I would still go with a bigger wing. And I like the side skirts and the front lip on this car, which is adding even more thousands of dollars onto his already pretty impressive build. A build like David's does start to make more sense if you consider it in terms of starting with a base unit. That one, you would still not break $30,000 potentially, and you would still have an excellent driving car. So in those terms, maybe going with a base car is the right choice. But if you go with the base, you don't have all of these nice interior appointments, which honestly, I really do like. It's not just about a car that's fun to drive, but it's about a car that's fun to live in as well. And the new BRZ TS is definitely the better option to live in. The nav system, for example, this year, only in 2018, has CarPlay and Android Auto. His 2017 doesn't. Do you really want to have to change the stereo? I don't think so. Not if it can be avoided. Here's something a lot of people don't understand. When you modify a vehicle, the expense of those parts doesn't do anything to the value of the vehicle. It does not increase the value of the vehicle. In fact, very often people have to part out the car, taking all the expensive parts off and selling them separately, because people don't want to buy cars that are modified. They just don't. And if they do, they don't want your modified car. They want to build their own modified car. So the modifications is basically throwing money into a hole. But the TS, it'll retain its value. It's a limited edition. It's got modifications from the factory. Everything works perfectly. The fact that this car comes like this is why it is such a great deal. You are buying a car that will retain a better resale value than a standard BRZ, and you're getting all of these modifications and enhancements as part of the deal. It's not like his car. If David were to sell his car as it is right now, he's not going to get a dime for those modifications. This TS, it'll retain its value. So if you're looking at a car, even driving it for 5 years, but then selling it or trading it in, the TS is the better option. Buy the TS. Put a set of coilovers on it. Put the original suspension in a box and enjoy your car. Enjoy it, drive it, have fun with it, because that is what the BRZ is all about. Whether you get a TS, a base, or a limited, it doesn't matter. And that's my look at the 2018 Subaru BRZ TS. Would you buy the TS, or would you buy a base model and mod it? What mods would you add? Be sure to comment below. Also, be sure to give us a like, thumbs up, thumbs down. Thanks for watching. Oh, and be sure to subscribe.